Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Welcome everybody to the Education Marketing Leader Book Club. If you haven't been a part of it before, my name is Chris Raposo. I'm a marketer. I currently work for a company called Staymates as a higher ed marketing agency. Prior to that, I've worked for Hannon Hill, makers of Cascade CMS. They provide content management systems for higher ed. And then while I worked there, I started a podcast called the Education Marketing Leader. And from that on, the book club was born. I'm a storyteller. In my free time, I run. I'm a husband and a father. And because today is National Daughters Day, here's a picture of my 4-year-old Kate, who's very fiery, here with her brother and her scooter out by the driveway. So that's the little girl. If anybody has a daughter here in this room, happy National Daughters Day as well. Be sure to recognize them online or to their face and say, it's good to have you with us in our lives. But the book of the month is The Gears of Success by Luke Phillips, which Luke Phillips is here to join us and give us a little bit more insights. We always have a Q&A. We have a couple of discussion questions where we'll just go through and discuss what our takeaways were from the book and then share some of the things on how we navigate market research or finding an audience or branding for our institution or the organization that we work for, because we have people here that work at institutions, higher ed institutions, but we also have people here that work on the partner vendor side, and it would be great for them to understand it as well and how to market their business better to be more successful and help their clients be more successful. Today's author is Luke Phillips. Like I said, he's a marketer. He's also a consultant. He's a teacher. I've noticed that he teaches a class at the university. Author, obviously, husband and father. But Luke, why don't you go into a little bit more of an introduction of yourself and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you so much, Chris. Just want to thank you for taking time to do this amid all the many things you do to host these for us. It's just such a wonderful thing. And thank you all for taking time to read the book and to even be here for the discussion today. Just so thrilled by that. Just kind of on a personal note, we were kind of talking. I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona is where I'm sort of based from, out here in the heat. Looking forward to some reprieve from that very soon. Also a family man, have 3 kids, a 1-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And we do have 1 girl, so I'm glad to see it's National Daughters Day. So that's kind of fun, Chris. So we'll have to celebrate that with her. And then professionally, my main role is at Pepperdine University, and I'm the executive director of enrollment marketing and digital strategy. So wear a few hats in that role. In kind of 3 categories, I lead enrollment marketing for the 6 schools of Pepperdine, all things enrollment, generating about 10 to 12,000 total enrollment per year in that range. And then I also lead what we call our PDA team, Performance Marketing, Data and Analytics, which is a fancy way to say the web team, websites and web properties and mobile app and those things. And then I lead an admissions team for our largest grad school, which is the Grad School of Education and Psychology, as one of the other of the many hats. So I've been in higher ed, for many years, was at in several other institutions, including helped a small health science university grow to be one of the fastest growing health science universities in the country several years ago. And so that was really one of the first sort of forays into higher ed, where prior I was in products and services and other types of marketing and business growth. So it's been wonderful to kind of bring it all into higher ed and to be able to be part of this community. And then I wrote the book really with higher ed in mind. I'd love to do a higher ed version, but as you all read it, you probably maybe can tell, and hopefully it resonated with you in your higher ed type of experience. But looking forward to the discussion and kind of thinking through how could we apply some of it to the types of things you all are doing day to day in all of your roles, and looking forward to hearing from each of you on, what your sort of takeaways were as well.
Awesome. Very good. Let's go into a quick introduction here. Jeremy, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Wood. I am the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Systems and Operations. Sorry, I just had to look at my new name too. At the University of Olivet. Really looking forward to learning from you, Luke. I am not a marketer by trade, but started considering that as a potential pivot and trying to be a sponge with it.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you, and it's a good group to learn about marketing, and then also make the connections with the people that are actually doing it. So connect outside of this room. Pablo.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again in this new session. I'm Pablo Mora, and I'm a head of communication in the Vice Presidency of Research and Development here at the University of Santiago in Chile.
Awesome. Good to have you again. Troy?
Roy Singer. I am a digital marketing consultant with Ring Digital, also the co-host of the Higher Ed Marketer podcast.
Good to have you. How was NACAC?
It was wonderful. Got to see a lot of people that I only see online 90% of the time, and really love doing that.
Awesome. Very good. Good to have you. Beth?
My name is Beth Karan. I work for iFactory. We are an interactive agency that supports higher education institutions. I've been there for 14 years now, a partner, but I loved reading this book, Luke, because my first job out of college was at a digital marketing agency. And then I went into advertising. So I had this whole other life, and I was bringing up so much. So thank you.
Awesome. Good to have you again. Great to see you. Patrick?
Yeah, my name is Patrick Anderson. I lead business development for a web development agency specializing in higher education by the name of Cheppers. And yeah, excited to get to know you all. If you're headed to Digital Collegium next week, we'd love to connect there as well. But yeah, excited to see everyone.
Grand Rapids. Yes, sir.
Yes.
I was there last year in Albuquerque. It's always a good time for sure.
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you. Good to have you. Robbie?
Excuse me. Hi, everyone. My name is Robbie Schneider. I'm with I run our social media and content strategy for Franciscan Health, which is not academic, but I do. I've known Chris through some online conversations and just interested in the topics and getting to know just from all of y'all's perspectives today.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. Awesome to have you. Let's hop right into the discussion. What we usually do here is that there's a couple of discussion questions here. Obviously, if you have burning takeaways that you want to share with the group, go ahead and do that. I split this up into chapters now, from you had an agenda too, like the foundation of success, market research to product market fit, mission fit, brand development, direct marketing, and bringing it all together. So I'm just going to ask out, and then we can go through the chapters, right? What are some of the creative or surprising ways your organizations, learn about their audiences, and which of those could be adopted to higher ed? What you got out of this book? Is there anything that you thought, hey, wow, I should use this for my organization to do research? Or is there something that you said, hey, we're doing this already, and I think I should share this with the group on how to do, for example, market research? So,
Chris,
yeah.
I can start, and it doesn't necessarily address what you just asked, but overall, you ask about takeaways each time you have these book clubs.
Right.
And preparing what my main takeaways were. Number one, I really like the way this book reminds us of great business practices. And in the beginning, you said for a lot of people, it could be a refresher. And although it is a refresher, we all need refreshed. And there's a saying, sometimes things go so well in our lives that we stop using what got us to where we are. So it's always great to be reminded. And I love the way you reminded us by making analogies to brands that we are familiar with. And I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the way that you presented this aligns with the way that you taught it when you are a professor or when you are teaching this in classes. And I really resonated with that. Then, secondly, which may be a little more, well, I'll just say it. I personally believe that professionals in higher ed, for instance, enrollment advisors and counselors, would do better if they saw themselves as business people. And I think that higher ed has rejected that thought for so many years. It's finally coming around that counselors are salespeople. And the way you set up how to have a brand marketing organization, or maybe building a brand, or the content marketing aspect, if we look at ourselves as salespeople or personal brands that we're building, and the mission that we are working on behalf of our institution and conveying that directly to the consumer, prospective students, I think we would bode well. So I was hoping, especially if there were other counselors or enrollment leaders on the call, to really press into that fact. So those were the two takeaways that I had.
That's great, Troy. I'll say a couple things about that, that are going around in my mind. I think the point about research, can be kind of heavy and bland and dry. So I was kind of taking a risk putting that as one of the first chapters, but I thought it's just so foundational, and it is a good reminder. I think we all probably have some idea of that and that it's important, but like you said so well, sometimes you kind of forget that. You just need to be reminded of it. A lot of that was, the whole book actually was born from my teaching. So I love that you said that. I don't think I've mentioned that anywhere, but I kind of was dwindling down my teaching role as I'm becoming a father and getting busy with other things. It was too much to be teaching it several nights a week. And so I thought, well, I have all this great content, and it was so heavy on the research piece that I really wanted to include that. And then I did also include, like, that bakery example has always been such a great thing with the students, where I would make them answer all these questions about their business. And then we'd say, but let me tell you something about the market now that you've now discovered, and see them light up with sort of enthusiasm around, oh yeah, in that case, I would change this, and help them realize, well, what if you would have already known that before you spent the time and money to go build the product and go to that, farmer's market or whatever. Sometimes it's moving to a whole different market altogether. And sometimes you find out they're interested in healthy things. So you're going to change, the approach you take. So really a lot of fun. And then I'll add one more quick note on the research piece specific to higher ed. I'm going to post in the chat here a link to Troy, your podcast episode I was on, because I covered actually a ton of specific types of resources for higher ed, Board of Labor Statistics, the IPED data where you can gather information, ways to do competitive and kind of target market analysis too. So I appreciate your insights and reflections on that.
You're welcome.
Okay, to continue to this overall point of view about the book, I would like to share with you my own experience, especially when you talk about a business person. What is the experience that I live with this book? In the first glance, in the first moments, I feel this book too corporate and focus on business, what is not a problem. The problem to me was that I work in a public university and a state college here in Chile. And I don't know how it's in the United States, but here in Chile, public university don't work as a business institution, because usually a student come here to study for free. Most of them don't pay for study here in the university. So usually people who work in this kind of institution don't don't work like a business person. So for that, in my first experience with this book is this is a lot of information about business. But then I put more effort in the reading, and I tried to see through the lens of higher ed research, because I work in a vice presidency of research and development in this university. So I communicate scientific project. So we don't sell anything, you know. So but it was very interesting, this evolution in my reading of this book, because then I started to match this valuable knowledge that you, Luke, put in this book, and started to match how, for example, market research helped me to understand better our audiences, because even though I don't have a market, I have audiences. So my audiences are three: the researchers community, the undergraduate students, and the general public. So I need to understand better this public, these audiences. So the tools that you share was very useful to understand better these audiences. And when it comes to product market fit, for example, it was very useful, the concept that you share, because in my case, the product is are the scientific project, for example, and I need to convey this project to these three audiences. So I can manage this project like a product for these audiences. And then the other topic was very interesting. For example, mission, vision, and values. Of course, I need to connect these research with the mission, vision, and values of the university, the same with the big brand of the university. So I need to add value from the scientific project to the big brand of the university. And finally, when it comes to direct marketing, is what we usually do when we need to convert these audiences into, for example, attendance to our different events or contest we organize. So we need every day to convert these three audiences into participants in our different activities. So it was a very interesting experience for me to read this book, because it was a very interesting evolution from first see this book as a very business book, but then I could apply all these concepts to my job, for example. So thank you very much, Luke, for this.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Pablo. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just so thrilled just to hear how the concepts in the book really reach an ultimate customer, no matter what field we're in, business or not. You know, often in higher ed, our ultimate customer actually is the employers and the industries we serve. You know, those who are going to go out and get a job, and what better way to serve them than to align the product with what is really actually needed out there. So even if it's not for growing our university purposes, but to align better with the needs we have, and those who are synthesizing and enacting the takeaways, whether that's from research or from an event or from anything else, that these kind of concepts of research and product market fit and direct marketing, I just kind of love hearing your perspective on how how your mind was thinking about it, and applying it to your context. So yeah, I really appreciate that. It was fun to hear you talk about it.
It's great. It's great. Any other takeaways from any of you? Jeremy, were you able to read the book?
Yeah, I was. And I guess with the initial question about the market research, it's one that I kind of, the longer I've been around, the more important I realize it is. And just both how helpful it is and how harmful it can be if you don't have it. That the bakery analogy was great, and I often find myself in situations where I don't feel like people are even asking the question initially, and I wonder, Luke, in your experience, maybe not necessarily related to the book, but how many students or how many classes you did that with, where somebody actually asked some of those questions up front before they took over. I don't know if that ever happened, but
I'll tell you, it never happened. And I just kind of put up questions on the screen. I said, we're all going to do a bakery together, and we just need to answer these questions. And they just would say whatever they like. And that is one of the things. I wish I had the quote pulled up in the book, where a lot of times our product in higher ed gets made by whatever someone kind of likes, and it might be a faculty, and it might have been done 10 or 20 years ago, and it's way out of line with what the market wants, even more than ever before. And so I said something to the effect of, you don't want to mistake something that we think is sort of really helpful on our end for something that's a differentiator for something that's actually a compelling market factor. So I love that you say that, because never did they do that as students as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think, there's just so much there. Kind of jumping way ahead in the book, I guess the part that I really appreciated was chapter 6 there, where you kind of tie it all together and demonstrate the interrelated nature of all of these things, all of these gears. I think there's a lot of people that I've worked with that are in the marketing space, even, and certainly those that aren't, that fail to make those connections. Like, if we don't define who we are, how do we define that for the student? If we don't do that internally, how do we do that for our market? But then again, to the market research, if even once we do that, if we don't then know how to go about finding those people, or identifying what their needs are, we could have the fanciest materials in the world, and still, go down swinging because we're not getting them in front of the right people. But yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you saying that about that 6th chapter. That was fun to sort of outline each one and try to connect all of them with examples. One of my favorites was how I was talking about different ones, like how brand and product market fit go together. And one example was WD-40. Like, those are just letters and numbers. No one knows what that is. There's no brand, but it was a really strong product that became well known. And then the opposite of that was like the Xbox, gaming system that had this amazing, huge brand of Microsoft behind it. And had they not had that, I wondered how those things would go. But love hearing you talk about it. I think we're often given programs or offerings of different kind. And our task as marketers and communicators is to package them up and present them to the right audiences in as compelling of a way as we can. But we'd likely be more effective if we help shape that product. And then just the importance, I think, for us and our roles of being included on the front end, and then showing our partners that we're knowledgeable in these ways and we're taking initiative to gather information to help inform, can really make a big difference. And I think it's fun to reflect across higher ed how different types of institutions do this, and they concentrate their effort. Like, for-profits are heavy on let's spend a lot, but they might not really maybe build the brand or do a lot on mission or on and they tend to be really good on product market fit. And then you have the public universities, as kind of Pablo was talking about. In the US, they're not totally free, but they're reduced and subsidized quite a bit. So their models are a little bit different, and you don't see them spending a lot on it because they really don't have to. So just fun to think through those different dynamics.
One of the things that I was thinking about too, as I was reading the book and thinking, I started having this thought while I was reading about the research, is all your different audiences that you're marketing to, because we think about, institutions are marketing to prospective students and parents and then the community. But I've also found it's really powerful to be able to make sure that you've got your internal, I'll use the word marketing and branding for lack of a better term, just that everybody who works there is on board with the same like mission, vision, values, and knows kind of how that expresses itself in just day-to-day communication. And it's because then they can be the brand ambassadors and carry that forward.
Absolutely, Beth. I feel that any person can make or break your brand. So whatever you say in the digital space or advertising or anything else, it can be destroyed by an interaction with one human being. And we've got to have our team members on board.
Nicely said, Beth and Robbie. I have to say a quick anecdote because in the book I mentioned under the mission chapter that there's a company owner I knew of that was really strong on mission. That actually was a college president. And I heard this college president come and speak, and he spoke about how if you walk around on their campus and ask what's the mission of this university, everyone could say it. They all could quote that, and they're living it and they're all about it. And he said enrollment's never been better. So I thought it was so interesting. He didn't say our digital marketing is great, we're spending a lot and that's helping us, or our articulation agreements we have with community colleges or whatever else. He just said we're really on mission and everybody knows it and knows how to talk about it. And I thought that was super powerful. But I thought it'd be fun to reveal that here, that I said kind of a company, leader, but it was really actually a college president who said that.
Yeah. Patrick, I know that you must do a lot of research when it comes to your role. What are some of the ways you go about it?
Yeah, it's a great point, Chris. So one of the things that I found actually like really enlightening about the book is that currently we are in the beginning stages of like launching a higher ed product. So it was really like allowed me to kind of take a step back and like review like, okay, are we going about this the right way? So Luke, I really appreciated that about the book from the non-higher ed perspective. But yeah, Chris, your point. So a lot of research goes into my job, and like I think from the clients that we've spoke to and some of our partners, it's if I look at kind of like years back in higher ed, like I know specifically from one of my stakeholders, it's like their university raised prices to kind of like elevate the prestige of sorts, but then that caught up to them years later in terms of like what the market was telling them, like, no, this is too expensive for the value that you're giving. So I think to your guys' point, like, are the mission, the value, are those things meshing? And like, there was kind of that, if you go a couple of years back, there was kind of that shift in higher ed where it was like, okay, people were like exploring different options, whether it was technical schools or alternative routes. And I think we're seeing enrollment like tick back up, and like Luke said, like enrollment is great across the board. I even read something on LinkedIn today that showed that. But I think, in the market, like people will tell you exactly what value you're bringing. So I think that was really interesting to read about.
Yeah.
Nicely said, Patrick. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's an interesting way of thinking about the kind of interdynamics of these kind of gears, So as our prices go up, the dynamic of market fit can change. And we experienced that a lot. Think about Pepperdine. Pepperdine is known as, this kind of a luxury brand. It's like the highest priced in the country. And so as our 3% per year keeps happening, we get further and further, I think, away from the audience. And then we start to see things like our direct marketing costs are a number of students coming from the concentration being higher, and then the cost being more and more. So yeah, I love that how you describe that, and it's definitely something we're experiencing too.
About the first question, ironically, we here know better our general public more than our undergraduate students and our research community. Why is that? Because we we try to focus a lot in, for example, in our social media activities or our web activities. So we know very well when a general public like our content, for example, because social media gives you this kind of information because the number of likes or awareness and so on. But we don't know too much about our researchers. They are very close to us, but we never ask anything about what are their needs, for example. Just assume that they need something, and we organize our activities, our communication about this kind of information. So the same with the undergraduate students. So in that way, what do you recommend to start with this market research? Do you recommend that we can do this research by our own, or do you recommend to another, I don't know, business outside the university, and we pay for this research? What do you recommend to start?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, we'll open up to anyone else too, of course, who might have thoughts here. But I just love how you talked about the importance of knowing the audience. I think I did reference in the book the idea that a lot of companies aren't hiring a chief marketing officer, it's kind of a chief customer officer. It's really a similar thing, but we're the chief group that should know that audience, maybe even more than our, professors or those who are the constituents with our research or anything else we do. So to answer that question, it's hard to say. It varies in my experience, depending on what you're trying to do, the type of research you're trying to gather. Some you just simply can't do probably on your own and be much more cost effective and resource effective of your time and to hire. But I do believe there's a lot you can do. I would always encourage doing what you can do. I mean, why not? If you can. What I've loved doing is hiring a few graduate assistants. I've always, at every institution, been able to get 2 or 3 who can work up to about 20 hours a week. And I get tons of research done on these. And if I only did one research type, for the purposes I have where I'm trying to grow enrollment, it's often the competitive analysis that gives me the best information. For other purposes, it might be industry analysis is kind of a big one, just understanding the way things are going and then target market. One of the best things I'd say is internal, just understanding what the students or constituent group, whatever that is, what that looks like now. And you can just study that and be out there. I love just actually being present with them too. That is such a simple thing, but we as marketers are often working online and remote or doing whatever we're doing, but we're not actually out with like students. And so I love even just photos of the classroom where I can see, oh, that's what the students kind of look like. The demographic was different than I thought, but that I would definitely point to that link I have in the chat for just what some good resources are. And the way I would answer that is I would say start with what you can do. And then if there's something you just can't, and you really need that research to define next steps, then look at, hiring for that. But I found higher ed, we're really fortunate because all institutions submit data to like the National Center of Education Statistics, the IPED data, where that's not present in other industries. They have to go off and pay to get a lot of things like that we actually get. A lot of it is lagging, it's completions, not starts first and things. So you are deficient in some ways, but that's kind of how I would answer that. Great question.
If I could add on to that, I want us to never minimize the impact of social listening. Your social media teams probably have invaluable insights, and they can tell you about patterns they're seeing, not only about your organization, but some of the competitors, questions that people are posting, complaints that they're having, disconnects in the experience, and that all can be brought back as qualitative data to help your team as you're refining communications for the future.
That's a good point.
Great point. It's good to hear from a social media leader, because you have had that experience being able to hear from the audience that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as an example, it's like how I started my personal brand, the education marketing leader. When I first started in higher education, it was all about research for me at first, right? Because I came into the area and I didn't know anything about higher education. So I figured, what's the best way to do my own research? Now, I could hit up people on LinkedIn and say, hey, can I pick your brain for 20, 30 minutes? That's a bit of a bigger ask than when I say, hey, you want to come on my podcast? Then they get something out of it. Then I ask them the questions that I want answers to. They have the benefit of being viewed as a thought leader, getting a little bit of exposure. And then, from that point, I moved on. What I should have done was competitive analysis. Obviously, Troy Singer's in the room here. My podcast is similar to the higher education market, higher ed marketer. Now, but he has a heavy hitter with, Troy is obviously well known, and so is Bart with all his experience. So it was really hard for me to get into that one. So there was no way for me to compete. And then you had the Enrollify network coming in as well and pumping out 15, 20 podcasts at a time. But I think sometimes the key here is thinking longevity and just stay in the course, don't getting discouraged, and then just moving through those rough waters. Because if you follow, I'm just picking on Enrollify here, they had to drop a lot of their podcasts over the last year. So the pool of competitors went down a little bit, but then you also have to make sure that you provide the value, right? So I put the add-on as it came to the book club at the beginning of the year. I said, how can I diversify and bring more people into the brand, which was the book club. But then I thought to myself, when I had a conversation with somebody at NCMPR, which is a higher education, it's community college, and one of them was from Tennessee, and we discussed the upcoming enrollment cliff, and I asked them, how's your enrollment going? And they said, well, we don't have an issue with enrollment. We have an issue with, people signing up, but not showing up. They sign up for school, but they don't show up for classes because the value there is they didn't put any skin into the game. So they don't, feel the obligation to show up at the proper time. And I noticed that here with this book club as well, right? So you get like 20, 25 people, they can register for free for this meeting, but then you have like half of them show up, right? So when it comes to discussing the value, bringing the value, so I'm obviously picking people like you or people that are well known in the higher ed industry to be the authors. How would you suggest, like for me, for example, to make sure that I provide the value and make it worth everybody's time to continue with this book club?
That's a great question. That's a hard one. But I think even the principles we've talked about apply, understanding the audience well. You're such a great connector, so what has done so well for you? That's another good principle, which I think I mentioned, is the idea of it's much easier and more cost effective to take something from 80 to 90% than it is from 0 to 10%. And that applies to if an effort has worked, pull that lever as hard as you can. And I think we're tempted to kind of try others, but pull the lever first and grow that. And that's the case across marketing channels. If that channel's working, if that product is taking off, push that product, where we often want to go grab another product, and things. So I think that principle kind of applies. You're so wonderful at connecting in those things. That's the key to it. And the product market fit and target market, who's the right, if it's a higher ed thing, who's the right sort of audience. So, but yeah, you touched on a lot of kind of features of the book. And sort of one of the things I would add to the discussion is in higher ed, if and when I write this book for just higher ed, I would add another gear. I would add a gear which I would call the wells that we draw from. I heard you mention community colleges. There's all these sort of places that we can go to in higher ed, depending on the nature of ours, whether it's community colleges, articulation agreements is a resource, international pools of students, potentially partnerships. You see a lot of universities that their whole growth strategy is off partnerships with industry, and they say, we'll train them in the way you need them, and then with an agreement that you'll hire them, and that we can keep our costs low. And another one I would add is sort of part of the product. And I'm getting on a tangent here, Chris, from your original question, but just to keep the conversation going here, a part of the product in my mind is also like your support services and things. So the way I think about these things is you could do all the best marketing in the world, but say if admissions just is understaffed, they can't call the incoming students, or they can't engage, or financial aid just is overwhelmed and they can't package up that enough. Or you get all these students in, but its student services doesn't have what they need to support them, and your retention is not where it needs to be. So there's all these kind of other factors of like what the actual product, is that can contribute, in higher ed too. So appreciate the question, and then opportunity to add a few more thoughts on the end of that too.
Chris, I'll say I love that the book club forced me to read the book. I have a lot of books that I've started, especially with a 3-year-old, that you don't get the opportunity to finish. And Luke, this goes into how you wrote the book as well, which was great, straightforward. It was like an easy but in-depth read where you could, the pages were compact and very efficient. And a lot of books, right, you got to go to the audio version because you just don't have the time. I had time for this, and like it was great from both perspectives. Like Chris, this, it forces you to finish a book. And then Luke, the way it was written was perfect for efficiency purposes. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Patrick. Yeah, I had that in mind. Again, it kind of was sparked from teaching students, and the attention span, they say, is like 7 seconds or whatever, so trying to get it to, get some illustration, some fun, and then keep it short. So it's like 170 or whatever, however many pages. And that was kind of on purpose, just want something people actually read. And I totally resonate with that with kids, and everything else is so hard. So I'm thankful to Chris also for hosting these, because it encourages us to get through the book and find the takeaways there too.
Yeah, I agree. It's good to have that accountability, because when I started this book club, it was all about, I've been reading the books on my own, and it's kind of like put them away and posted about it, I guess, at like a book review on LinkedIn. And it was like, why not bring some people on their journey? And yes, I did get that, what you said, Patrick. A lot of people reached out to me. It's like, oh, great. Now I feel like I have an accountability partner to help me get through this, to get the book, and get then, have other people to meet up with me and discuss it on a monthly basis. And yeah, really appreciate everybody that's been showing up so far over the last couple of months repeatedly. So it always encourages me to keep going with that. So but yeah, so real quick there, if there's any other questions for Luke, we have another 5 minutes or so before we talk about the next book. So if the floor is open. And also what I wanted to say, connect with each other on LinkedIn to continue the conversation after this as well. So, but maybe Robbie from the healthcare space, because we're all higher ed here, maybe you can shine a little bit of light on what we should know and what you guys do that's successful to market your organization.
Boy, I think one of the things, well, healthcare is always a challenge because nobody wants to hear about it, but we all need it. And especially in a very polarized environment that we work in, and particularly the last 5 years. I think it is so important, and we talked about this a lot over lunch today, and it's so important to make sure that you don't have that disconnect between your communication and marketing messages and the actual human experience. That happens so often, whether it's I'm frustrated because of billing, or I'm frustrated because this isn't working on your website, or I called this number and they're not helping me. To those micro moments, maybe it's somebody at the check-in desk is having a bad day. All of those things can help make or break your brand. And marketing really can do so much, whether it's healthcare or higher education, but it can actually backfire if we can't live it up by the experience when they walk in our doors. So there's so many parallels.
Yeah, it really is. I think healthcare and higher ed are such adjacent industries. They've been on the similar trajectory too over the past like 30 years. Like it used to be that hospital, for example, it was the only hospital in town. You didn't need to market that. Everyone just goes to that one clinic or whatever it was. And now there's choices all across town. There's online options, all these things. Well, same with higher ed. You know, it was the one college in town. There's no such thing as online learning or competitors, and often it was like the state school or whatever it was, and everybody just went there. And now it's become one of the most competitive. And if you follow the arc of spend on marketing for both of these industries, they used to be nothing, and now they're millions and billions, you know, of dollars for both of the industries. So
And having watched both my children going through this recruitment process, it is fascinating to watch how it is and how those experiences can make or break. We actually had an experience last fall, and I'm digressing a little bit, but my son was on a trip with his troop to Gettysburg, and we were doing a tour, and he stumbles on the local college there. Campus was gorgeous. He's like, I'm just going to pop in and everything. Had a fantastic 45-minute conversation. We have left the tour at this point, talking with the Welcome Center. He is sitting at the campfire, reading through these welcome materials, totally excited, and does not hear from the college for any kind of recruitment for 11 months. And that's, again, it's those little make or break moments. And when he finally did, he's like, why would I bother? And we have to be so cognizant of those micro moments every day.
That's really great. That's so well said. I love how you describe the difference between the experience and the marketing. We try to package it up, you know, we're like that Welcome Center did an amazing job, you know, but then if it's not connected to the rest of the experience, it actually can be really detrimental. And I think that's a sort of call for us, no matter what role we are, if we're in the room with leaders and the narrative keeps going for one category. I think that's part of what this book is hoping to get us to do, is say, if you keep talking about digital marketing in every meeting, or if you just keep talking about the Welcome Center, or in this case, we should be talking about some of these other things. We should talk about the experience, the product itself, and how we can improve. If we spent more time there, we really would have less need to have the conversation, and doing that carefully, you know, while keeping our roles going, but expanding the mindset and the role of the marketer and communicator in all these settings.
And people feel like, well, maybe you're stepping on toes because we're talking about this, or we're talking about that, and shouldn't you just be about doing an ad? And so much of it is just, it's about having an integrated, cohesive message and making your audiences feel welcomed.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like what you said earlier too, with the social listening is very important, especially, you know, like you said, one person can make or break your brand with a bad review, and in order to, you know, you want to be able to respond to it in a proper manner, in a timely manner as well, so that bad news doesn't spread like wildfire, especially when you have somebody that's like, say, an influencer or a celebrity who's went to your organization and then they had a huge really bad experience, and then he posts about it on social media. That, you know, that's really hard to fix that bad reputation.
Yeah, especially, you know, in my industry, we've got HIPAA. I'm not entirely sure how FERPA impacts what you're able to do in the digital space. I'm still getting reacquainted with that, but yeah, being in a regulated industry makes it tougher.
I wanted to add a quick comment on, made a really great point there about how leadership are kind of focused in one area, and sometimes it feels like stepping on toes. That's what it was. That's so good. And I wanted to share, in my career, I remember a turning point in my career where I had always been the person doing the marketing execution, and I just kind of went out on a limb. I kind of did a market research study for a program, and I brought it to the program chair and said, hey, I just want to share this with you. And it was way more well received than I ever imagined. They loved it. They love research and data. And they were felt so supported, and it built so much confidence and trust in me. It built my confidence as well, as I was doing that earlier in my career. And it's been a huge part of my trajectory since then. It was like then I remember doing that same exercise with like an MA, Masters in Teaching program that was just out of line with the market. We adjusted it to be an 11-month program. Our marketing now became, you could start your program in September and be teaching by August. And it knocked the door down on enrollment. We had to cap it. We didn't have space for more people, and they were thrilled. So after you get a few wins like that, they start to really, you know, build and instill that confidence and be willing to bring you in on those conversations, because they know you'll be really valuable to those as well.
Awesome. Very good, everybody. Thank you so much, Luke. Anybody have any more questions? Otherwise, we'll hop into the next book.
Just Luke, I look super forward to hearing the higher ed edition of this because I'm sure the next gear and the level of complexities, I'm excited to hear how you think about that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, just appreciate you all. This has been so much fun and great getting to know you. Definitely want to connect on LinkedIn and appreciate you all reading the book again and allowing me to be part of the discussion today.
Yeah. Does everybody have their book? We usually do a little picture here, like with the book like that, and then I'll tag everybody on social media. Let's see here.
Oh, 1 second, I have to get my screen up.
Yes, go ahead. It's cool. Okay, you ready, guys? All right, 3, 2, 1. Cool, I got it. Great. Okay, cool. So next up, so there's a Jeff Ebbing. He brought this book to my attention. It literally got published this week or last week. It's called How to Be a Small College. It's written by the president of a small university, Gary Danes. And I thought it was really cool to have that because we go across the board with the books. What we're covering. Small colleges are the ones that are supposedly most affected with the higher education enrollment cliff. So I want to put that out there as a resource for everybody. It's okay, a little bit about the book, How to Be a Small College, Challenges, the Ideas That Decline is Inevitable. Drawing on decades of leadership experience, Gary Danes shows how small colleges can thrive by rejecting the grow or die mindset, connecting learning to meaningful work, and serving local communities. His message is clear. When small colleges stay true to themselves, they remain vital to student and societies. Again, I think everything leads back to a mission fit, like the last book that we had, this book that we have now. So yeah, so this is the one we have scheduled for November 4th. I want to give it a couple more weeks for people to get that in the mail. So we have this on November 4th. Gary agreed to be a part of the book club. So I'm going to create an event and I'm going to send an invite to everybody in a couple of days. So you'll see this on LinkedIn later on today, but yeah, just want to share you what's coming up next and hope you'll join us again for that one. So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed today's meeting and I'll see you on LinkedIn. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. I was going to say, if
Thank you.
anybody's going to be at High Ed Web next week, feel free to look me up. I won't be there, but I'm in Grand Rapids.
Oh,
Will do, Jeremy. Will do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
all
See you
right.
guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Education Marketing Leader Podcast this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and your network. And if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, now that you listen to one and you got inspired, reach out to me via DM. We'd love to help you launch your own. We'll take care of everything for you, the scripting, the strategy, the editing, distribution. All you have to do is show up, connect with your audience, and build your personal brand. So if you're ready for it, let's chat. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time at the Education Marketing Leader Podcast. Take care, friends.